undertakes predominantly small-scale projects in southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales. He is interested in the temporal and the durational qualities of landscape, in particular, how plants and planting design interact with the architectural form to augment the spatial experience. Everyone welcome Dan.
Hello, thank you. So there's some words to start with, but really I want to talk about landscape and landscape architecture and how it relates to these things, and then I guess explore those through some precedent projects that some I've seen, some I haven't seen, and then apply that, or look at how I apply that to my own practice in Brisbane generally. So this first image is in Namibia in Southern Africa, and I was lucky enough to have a job there in the early 2000s. And that job was a safari guide, and it was great. And part of the process, I guess, of that was that I discovered that the way we did things and curated, I guess, the experience of travel changed people's perceptions of landscapes like this, which is the Fish River Canyon. So you could visit this place in one approach, and the experience that the clients got was different from if you visited it in a different way. And that's when I started to understand that the way you designed or curated an experience was important. So this is the High Line in New York, and projects and I guess landscapes are about people, and any design is about people. So it's always, I guess, at the centre of my approach to things that you're designing for people, and people use space. And I guess contextually, space, I guess I look at it as there's a confluence of interior architecture and design and architecture and landscape that is all centred around a human experience and a human scale. So this Lautner project, the Shades Goldstein residence, is kind of everything. It's all of those things. Plants are also important, and you can do lots of great things with plants, and they have specific qualities and characteristics. This is one way to approach plants in monocultures and doing things with them. It's not necessarily how I would approach it, but it is an approach. This is more the way I approach things, I think. So in the top row, really looking at textures of, say, fern versus philodendron versus monstera, scaling up a texture. In the centre, the same species, genus rather, with different form, colour, and so on. And that understanding, I guess, of plants is the point of difference that a landscape architect might have in practice, because architects, interior architects, are great spatial planners. D House by Donovan Hill is a great example of that. If a landscape architect can't offer something different, what is their point of difference? So this is one of my projects now, done with Owen Architectures, the Rosalie House. And landscape is, again, about people, and there's not many people in a lot of these pictures, so there I am. It was kind of looking at, well, what does this family specifically need? Open space. And then, I guess, looking at those ideas of textures and scale and form and how you might interpret those things in a coherent palette, but then still looking at different form and how you address drainage and specifics of what you might need in a site. And again, a series of trees in central courtyards designed to screen or shield views from living spaces to other areas, giving shade as recreational space, but then still addressing the ideas of form and texture and subtle variations. And coffee. So this is Gibbon Street by Cavill Architects. And again, the idea of sort of enclosed space, looking at central strong form, but then light textures and variation in shade and scale, again, and form across, I guess, a small close spectrum. And then transferring that idea of transition of texture and almost monoculture to a roof plane, and saying, well, what is the kind of variation you might be able to get in a project using 5 or 6 different sort of genus of plants? There's actual people in that image, which is great. And I guess that was kind of what that image there says. It says, hey, you can have not many different plants really, but they all have different characteristics. They have a similar form, but they might start to vary in shade or scale. So there's again a coherence in that palette that starts to then transpose across future projects, I guess. So this is the bungalow garden with Myers Elliott, and I hope that some of these ideas are starting to come sort of apparent in these images. So the colour might remain the same, but the size or the scale of the plant might scale up or down. It might be a subtle shift in how light works with that particular plant form, how it grows on structure, whether you allow it to grow on structure or not, and then how that then, I guess, augments that experience. So that image in particular was about being able to gain access or visual access between a series of spaces through the landscape. And that image there, again, really is about taking the form of that larger sort of philodendron leaf on the right. Scaled down, it becomes syngonium, different kind of sort of colour form, but then the colour in the philodendron with the other philodendron at the top left is kind of similar. And the final project here is a new project we've only just recorded at Windsor. And I guess it was kind of reverting to the idea of a personal or domestic scale of design and landscape, and how you can maintain a street presence and privacy and separation from the street to create, I guess, almost a little pocket garden without setting up a barrier to the street. So that wall from the outside is only kind of 1.4 metres high, but inside it's 2.1 metres high, and it gives a little bit of repose and separation without just, I guess, fencing off directly from the street. And then the final image really is about, so the clients in this particular project had their wedding in that space, and they sent this photo on the night of the wedding, which I thought was remarkable, showing, I guess, people using a space. And as a designer, you can't really dictate how it's going to happen. You have an idea about how you might want people to use space. And if it happens, that's great, and that's all you can ask for. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. That was some truly beautiful projects. Our next speaker is a colleague, friend, and director of Conrad